And there we go. So if I have done right, we can see the agenda here, and I will say welcome to the March 3, 2021 Advisory Committee on Transportation Choices. My name is Josh Volb. I am the chair. This meeting is being recorded with Microsoft Teams and held virtually due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We have figured out an accommodating way afterwards that we want to thank our people, and I think in school and community relations, that you will be able to watch these meetings afterwards. So first up on the agenda here is, let's see here, meeting protocols and introductions, because we do have our county chair representative, Libby Garvey, is here with us. So Libby, did you want to give?
I'll just say hello.
Do you want to say anything or okay?
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be here. You know, I've been kind of working on these sort of issues a little bit since I was on the first, on the school board a long time ago. I'm delighted to see particularly like the Carlin Springs project moving forward, because that's been an issue for a long, long time. And delighted to be part of the group. And I look forward to listening to the presentations. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you. Just Jillian says, my daughter, Jillian is here, but it is named under her daughter. That happens with all of us using computers. So thank you for being here. Kristen, have I missed anything else under virtual protocols and introductions that I should be doing? And you're on mute. I know.
It's been a long few weeks. No, I don't know. Libby, would you like us to do a round of introductions so you know who we are? I did not put that on the agenda, but we could do that.
You know, I probably know a lot of people, I think. So how about if just as people talk, if they whatever, and they want to introduce themselves, but a number of these folks I know. So rather than just sort of, everybody else knows everybody, I don't want to take that, keep it moving, but no, that's great. Thank you, Kristen. Okay. That's thoughtful of you, but I think I'm good. And if I start to wonder if somebody, I'll just ask, who are you? It's fine.
Very good.
All right, very good.
Okay. Nope, I think that's it for meeting protocols then, Josh.
Fabulous. So the minutes for this the January meeting are going to be pushed off to May, as the staff who does this has been working on something 27 hours a day because she somehow figured out how to cram 3 more hours into a single day. So we're going to push that off until May. As I said, the recordings are going to be posted and available for people to rewatch. Kristen, do we know exactly where that's going to be housed yet, or are they still working that out?
I think they're working out, but my goal would be to have it on our website because that's where people go to look for stuff for us. So hopefully that will be the case, or at the very least a link to it.
But and the recordings, I was going to say the recordings have been on the website, but they're not accessible. That's the problem.
Yes, we are fixing that problem. They are having to be ripped off Teams and I think posted to Vimeo or Livestream, one of the two. That issue. Budget Advisory Council has also had the same access issues.
Yeah.
So, that was definitely a problem that we're working on. And also, so the last thing on my administrative items is the June meeting date. We had a couple choices and we went with June 16th because we wanted to take the one prior to the end of school, as we find that many of us are community members involved in school and skedaddle the day after things end. I see a hand up from Elizabeth. Hi, Elizabeth. What's up?
Hi. So I didn't know that Kristen. I assumed that Kristen's who you're talking about are doing the minutes. I'm not trying to brag, but I take minutes from way back. If anyone just wants me to take minutes like as the meeting's happening, I'm not going to record like a ton of stuff. I'm very focused on like this happened and then the vote was taken. But I'm happy to do that, just to take that. I mean, June is a long way away from a January meeting. I feel sorry for Kristen sitting and listening to the recording and trying to type those up. So just an offer, if you would like me contemporaneously to take minutes tonight, I'm happy to do that.
Elizabeth, that would be wonderful. The reason we pushed off these minutes from January is that I simply didn't get to them.
No, and I would never get to minutes that weren't taken during the meeting. I take the BAC meeting minutes while it's happening. So I'm going to start right now and I'll send it to you after.
That would be great. Yes, I have been going back and rewatching things so that I can remember.
Sorry for you. These meetings are hard the first time. The second, my God. I'm not hard. They're a joy. Let me be clear. I just, whew, the third time.
So, thank you, Liz. That'd be helpful. And I think, well, actually, I think, Josh, we said we do them in May. We do have a May meeting.
Yes.
So we'll do them in the two together in May, and then we'll be back in business. Hopefully the world will have somewhat righted itself by then, and we'll be not spending 27 hours a day on back to school.
So thank you very much for that offer. Very, very much. Thank you. That distributive, was it lots of hands make for lighter work. So thank you.
Yes, thanks, Elizabeth.
So we are now on to the return to school transportation update because we're going back to school. Do you need to share your screen?
No,
okay.
You're looking at the presentation.
I am looking forward to it.
Yeah. No, it has been a long few weeks, months, but we kicked into high gear the beginning of February when the back to school announcement was made. So a lot of my time has been focused on the bus routing. And so I think, as we've talked about before, we worked with a consultant to help us do some scenario planning, first of all, to see, how we could do this with the limited number of buses that we had. And then, they would get ratchet down, with each scenario, we would push and pull certain levers, but ultimately we had them help us do the routes all together. And, just to keep in mind that, so we have, we're routing about 4,400 students, I think it is right now. And they're on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays. So, we're looking at, two different route sets. And the way the routes are developed in order to meet some of the constraints that we have provided or been given, I don't know what you want to call it, we even have different, in some cases, different AM routes and PM routes. Some of the things that have caused that to happen, or one large thing I would say, is that I think we talked about this, that the elementary schools, all but the two immersion programs, are dismissing about an hour and 20 minutes earlier than their normal bell time. So what that did was it reordered the afternoon bus configuration. The routes is, I think all a route is made up of several runs or trips. And so we've got, one bus, one driver do trips for up to 3, sometimes 4 schools. And usually, under normal operating conditions, you've got the same route in the morning that you have in the afternoon in the same 3 schools. Well, in this case, because we're dealing with, not only the 2 different days of the week or 2 different route sets, but also the 11 student per bus constraint, in order to move the buses very efficiently, and then also this early dismissal with the elementaries, the order of the stops and the order of the schools becomes different. So we started back yesterday, and we used our first route set. They're not perfect. I'd say they're probably at about 85 to 90%. There are some things that we have to come in and tweak again. And we're going to see how tomorrow goes. I heard some good reports from schools, which was thrilling, I'll tell you that much. And then we had some other schools where it was a little bit of a bumpier ride. A bus, didn't come in. A bus didn't come in at all. missed a stop, things like that. So our drivers are getting used to what is essentially 4 different configurations. We finished this first route set really mid last week. Yes, mid last week. And so the drivers had basically Thursday and Friday and Monday to run the routes. So not only do we have these new patterns and configurations, but the drivers are also almost, they only had 3 days really to practice. So, and they're doing a tremendous job. They're doing such a great job. I don't think Kim is on with us tonight because I'm sure she's exhausted. She's probably up at 2 in the morning with the buses, but they're really, they're doing it. They're making it happen. And it's been amazing. We released the elementary school routes last Friday. And then this week, we'll release our 6th and 9th grade routes. And we've got a couple small adjustments we need to make to some of the elementary school routes now. There may be more coming when we do a larger revision, but some small adjustments. And then next Friday, we will release the rest of the middle school and the high school routes. And I know it seems like, well, wait a minute, they're just starting the following week. But we're continuing to work on the routes now. I mean, it's an ongoing work in progress. So a lot of the work is just it's checking data, it's checking routes, it's checking stops, checking rosters, and going back and forth with the schools about student eligibility. As we've been saying, we took the data as of a certain point in time, and this was February 5th. And so the student data had to indicate that the student was hybrid and not virtual. It had to indicate that the student would use APS bus transportation. And then we had to have a day of the week to route the student. And in some cases, that information was not in there by the 5th. And so we're getting calls, well, why am I not eligible, or why don't I have bus information? So we're fielding some of that, and schools are helping us research some of that. So the next kind of critical decision point is how and when do we reoptimize? We've been through a lot of analysis or rather route, just sort of evaluating the routes. So the question is, will that completely change the routes if we do a reoptimization, which would then include students who have since dropped transportation, and some families have done that. They've decided to either bring their child themselves, or they've decided they don't want to be hybrid, they want to be virtual. So there's just a lot of moving parts right now. On our, and that's our general ed routes. On our special ed routes, we continue to route our special ed students. We had a number of routes ready last Friday, but some that were not ready, and we're still routing those. And so the data again is still coming back and forth. And with that, that's even, on a good day under normal operating conditions, it's very, it's art. It's art and science, because our special ed router needs to understand the needs of the student who's being routed, whether it's a wheelchair or they may have another condition that requires a certain specialized equipment. So she has to do that matching. And then on top of that, we have the not only 2-day a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but we have some of our students with special needs who are attending 4 days a week. And these are the ones who need probably the most support and the most hands-on support. And so they continue to go 4 days a week. So it is a very, very complex routing program that we have underway. And we've asked the community for their patience as we work through this. we've definitely gotten some emails. But I think, I've had an opportunity to respond to some of them and tell them, where we are in the process and what's going on. And people have generally been understanding. They hope that we can fix it if it was something that was, wrong about a stop or something. So, but, we're only into day 2. So hopefully that will hold. I think March is going to be our period of adjustment for the buses. So why don't I could stop there, and if anybody has any questions, I guess why don't I take them there, because the bus thing is a big chunk of stuff.
And Kristen, I want to just say that all of us here on this call, I would hope that we would take the charge of, if you hear someone in the community saying, or concerned or complaining or whatever about this, to just remind people that this literally is the first time we have ever tried to do something like this, a mid-year rerouting of everything with new bus start times is just, and to ask people for their time and patience as we try to get this right. So that would be my little appeal here. And let me see, I see something in the chat. And so Dave McBride says, thank you, Kristen, for all the transportation support for schools and for WEDA access testing and for the cones and the safety vests and the support, and to Lauren for the safe walking maps and supporting the schools as well. We are gearing up for secondary schools to start next week. And Jillian says, yes, thank you, Kristen, for your amazing work. If there are any other questions at this point, either raise your hand or turn on your camera, or we'll move to the next part. And of course, if questions pop up later, we can go there as well. Elizabeth.
Sorry, not related at all. Just checking, who is Patrick, the guest? Sorry.
Patrick Kenny, is that you?
And you're on mute.
I think it is our new Pedestrian Advisory Committee representative, Patrick Kenny.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Sorry, as you were.
Okay. I was going to give some statistics, just a quick note of how many buses we actually are using. Let me see if I'm just going to pull up. Because we are very worried about the number of buses. We were really looking at a constraint of about 105 buses. And that a lot of that has to do with driver and attendant availability. So on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, right now we are holding at about 94 buses. I think that's going to go up a little bit when we make an adjustment this week. But that's pretty good. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays right now, we're routing 2,188 students. And again, I think that will change, but let me I'll give you Thursday, Friday, and Elizabeth, I can certainly provide you these numbers if you're not catching them. Thursday, Friday, we have 93 buses, and we're transporting 2,163 students. So I did get a report today, just looking at our student information system, and it does seem like we have had a good number of students who have dropped, certainly more drops than adds, and that we'll just sort of see how that changes as we go on. Dave actually mentioned something that I forgot to mention, but thank you. We're also providing bus service on Mondays for our students who are virtual, who require language testing. There are English language learners. So I'm working with the schools on their rosters. That's actually hand routing. So we get the rosters from the school. I take them, put them on a map, and then send them off to routing with some stops that I think make sense from where the students are, and then they come up with a schedule, so we're a good tag team on that, and then we get them off to the schools. So actually, Dave, how did yesterday go with the testing and the buses while you're on?
It's going well. I mean, we had the buses showed up. We've had access testing now. It's a requirement, federal testing. And our problem was we have a significant number of students who would need transportation. So it's been great that they've been provided free transportation, because it seemed like quite the irony that we're requiring you to come to school and yet we're not providing transportation. So it's been a huge help to have that through APS transportation.
All right, good. Glad to hear that. All right.
Kristen, question in the chat from Jillian is, are the drop students from switching from hybrid to virtual, or hybrid students electing to not use transportation?
It's a mix. It's a mix of both. I don't have, couldn't tell you how many of which we have, but I think there's about 400 and some of them right now. And those are ones that are currently being routed. So we'd like to be able to do something about that. And try not to upset the apple cart too much.
Thank you. Let's go on. Let's keep going on with the rest of it, and then we'll open it up for a couple minutes of questions at the end.
Okay. Let's see. I actually jumped onto B when I should have started with A, but I wanted to say thank you again to our county staff, who have been tremendous with the arrival and dismissal support. We had the teams out last week and this week posting a lot of the temporary signage, putting it up for, park and walk locations, staff parking locations on street, and then also the special signage to let parents know if the school is using the car line for their screening for car riders. We put up signs that said, no parking, stay in car, testing location. So they got those up in excellent time. And I see Hui's hand up, and hopefully maybe she wants to say a word about that, but we're so grateful for that.
Thank you, Kristen. I just want to let the team know that my team, after they posted some of the signs around school, they went back and checked, and we noticed places where people tear the sign off.
Okay.
There is one school, I think Key Elementary. It was like continuously being torn down twice. So it's the third time we went there to put up the same sign. What I will ask is, if the school notice any sign missing and should be there, or the wrong stuff there, please let us know, because we start to realize that we do ask our staff to check, when they can pass by and check, see if they're still there. But if you notice anything, let us know. We can go repost.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I want to say one thing, and then which will dovetail into the question in the chat, which is I want to thank the county. I live over Columbia Heights area, so at Columbia Pike and Scott Street, and we had, through the new construction, we got a new road, and there was a project to improve that intersection. The county actually came in and expedited that, and then when I walked it myself and noticed at a street at, I think it was 12th and Rolfe, that because the curb wasn't painted, people were parking up and blocking vision, and we asked for the signage to be put up, and they came out. Kristen, I never even told you, it was up there 3 weeks ago on that walk to Hoffman Boston. So county staff and school staff have worked together amazingly on this. And Patrick was asking, in the rerouting for buses, are pedestrian walkways being marked, accommodated for students who may walk? So I can only speak on mine, and then you can add to it to say the county has been fabulous in these expanded walk zones for Hoffman Boston. So I don't know if you want to speak into that, or do you want to dovetail that with the temporary infrastructure?
Yeah, we can do that. We can talk about it with the temporary infrastructure, or Lauren, maybe Lauren, if you want to chime in on, I think Patrick hasn't been with us since all fall when we were talking about this, but Lauren, want to talk a little bit about the navigation maps and what we've got going on there?
Sure. For each of the expanded walk zones, and then for 2 of the middle schools, we did walk audits and put together what we felt were the most recommended routes to take to get from the expanded walk zones to school. And in the case of middle school, some additional routes that had not been on previous maps. And those have all been posted and shared with the community directly from the school to the school community, and also just generally on the APS website. And from what we've heard, they've been very well received and very helpful. And the audits were done over the course of several weeks on the summer and the fall. So there have been some temporary accommodations that have been added in since then, but everything is pretty well accurate.
So 2 questions in the chat related to, do we know why the signs are being torn down? Is it just vandalism? And Kristen, and then Jillian asked about how is car drop-off going? Do we have any reports on that?
Let's see. So first question, I'm not sure what's happening at Key. I do know that at Nottingham, they took the signs down, and they just told me that today, and I was going to send you all a note. What they found was that their people were being unsafe, and so they decided that they did not want to do the park and walk. They wanted to use their car line to manage that. So they didn't want people parking where we had identified parking. So, and I said, well, obviously, if it's a safety issue and that's what you're seeing, then we definitely want to do something that's safer. So I'll send you a note. Just an email to confirm that way.
Yes, please. If it's a change of plan, then we will just, acknowledge that, and we will not go out reposting. Yep. I think Key and Drew are the 2 schools that we saw people tearing them out. Like, if people has done that twice in a week, within like 3 days, I think there's probably some purposely purpose in that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's by accident.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll get to the bottom of those. But yeah, if you hear any more of that, or if I hear any more of it, we'll share information.
So shall we move to crossing guards and then observations, and then we'll take a couple minutes of questions at the end as well.
Yep. I'm going to ask Lauren to do the crossing guard update. She's jumped in on that and been managing that process, which has been that one's been kind of tough too. So Lauren, if you want to give us an update on that.
Sure. We had several crossing guards retire, and several just had to find other jobs during the time that schools were closed. So starting at a deficit in the number of actual crossing guards available, and an increase in the number of intersections that we had requested support at. So the crossing guards are spread a little thin, and then add to that the new dismissal times, making it difficult for guards to cover 2 schools that close at the same time. So it has also been a matter of spreading our resources as widely and equitably as possible, but some have had to be, some intersections have not been covered. And we've been working very closely with police to make sure we know where there is coverage, who is covering, and what the times are, and then sharing that with the schools so that the schools can answer questions at that level. And after 2 days, we've had just 1 or 2 questions raised. So far, so good, except that if anyone knows anyone who has any interest in working as a crossing guard, I can put the hiring information, the job posting in the chat. So share it widely. And yes, we do not have the PSAs and other supports that we've had in the past. So that's been a little bit of an issue as well. But everyone knows what we have and what we're doing. So it's not a matter of not communicating. It's more a matter of just not having the resources that we'd like to have.
Yeah, so that's been kind of tough. Oh, Josh, you have some hands.
John has a question.
Yeah, I'm just curious, how many guards are you down, and how many do you have total if every spot was filled?
If we had every crossing filled, or if all the vacancies were filled, it's about 32. We have, including crossing guard supervisors and assistant supervisors covering, we have 21, but we lost 4, I believe, crossing guards between retirements and people just finding other positions. Yeah, and then we have some police officers and special operations have been monitoring some of the intersections that are of concern, but that are not covered. And we haven't, again, we've had a fraction of the students returning, but that this will be evolving over the next 3 weeks. They'll continue to monitor and to rebalance and reassess. And then we're just going to, keep the information getting out there if there are changes or if there's any inputs we receive that we want to convey to police. So.
And
Okay.
Lauren, a great question in the chat, because if we were paying them $1 million an hour and giving them a Cadillac, we would have people lining up at the door. And the question is from Libby, do we have a sense of what crossing guards should be paid to get them to apply and stay?
I think it's a combination of pay, but it's also hazardous duty, and it's a very difficult shift in that you have to be available in the morning and the afternoon. So it works for certain people. Retirees are great. People who maybe have, there are a lot of kind of personal schedules that come into play for someone to apply. The pay is hourly, and it's part-time, and it's during the school year. So there's that as well. So I think that's,
Lauren, could I offer
answer.
a suggestion? Because I work closely with my mom, and I know that there is a great network of this with the 55 plus with Arlington. Since you say it's primarily a retiree job, is this something that could be pushed out as a notice through the 55 plus I think that's run through Parks and Recs to say, hey, Arlington County needs your help during these times?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think we've done that in the past, but we haven't done it again this go round. So we will definitely do that now that we know that schools are open. It's one of those things that
sure, absolutely.
Hard. So yeah, I'll get in touch with Susan about that.
And then maybe
it's a great idea.
There's a lot of people who are constantly asking and the question of how can I help? So I'll take one more. John's got another question, and then we'll do the last part.
Yeah, just one quick comment, and that is I saw where you all are making good use of the crossing guards before school opened. I saw them at the vaccination centers, and they were doing a great job there, handling the traffic and so forth. So it looked like a great way to use their time when school was not actually open.
Oh, that's great. I didn't realize that. So that's
thank
good.
you. Yeah, I noticed that too. I'll pass that along to the supervisor. Thanks.
Yeah, and just I think Catherine asked the question, but are we hiring? I mean, we're Arlington County Police is the one who hires and manages our crossing guards, and they have a rolling application. It's always open. So, and what we try to do is just support it by pushing it out through our channels, and then for any additional county channels like the DPR 55 plus program or whatever else, we just keep trying to push it out. Nope.
I'll put that link in the chat right now.
Oh, good. Good.
Thank you. There it is.
And then, I just put this observation section on there, Josh. If anyone, was out and about during back to school, or if you sent your kids back and you just wanted, to share how you felt things went, I'd just put that in there.
So if anybody's got thoughts they want to put in the chat about how they do it, perhaps think about it. Maybe if you want to text a friend that went back to say, hey, do you have any thoughts on this? Maybe we'll say 5 minutes at the end in case people want to text around and get some feedback together. Maybe that'll work to pull that in. Jillian?
So we practiced our bike train to key on the weekend, and our bike train alone filled up the bike racks that are there. So that is my one observation, and I know of at least one other bike train that's coming. So I know that we will need more bike racks at Key Immersion. I already sent a note to Bike Arlington, but
okay.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And like I said, we'll save 5 minutes at the end if people texted up friends and said, hey, how did it work at your child's school? And we can maybe get some other feedback. This next one excites me greatly because some of these suggestions have come out of this committee. So, Kristen, I am excited to hear about the temporary infrastructure installs.
Well, this one I'm going to hand over to Wei because these are projects certainly that we've worked together on, but her staff is, they're the ones who are implementing them. I'll just say the Lorca Lane one is, it's a missing sidewalk, basically a missing sidewalk project with a temporary install. Carlin Springs is additional space on Carlin Springs for a ped buffer. And then the Nellie Custis and Military Road is a project that's been in the works for a while, and they're going to pilot a roundabout over there. But so that's in summary, but Wei, if you could flesh these out for us and tell us what's going on.
And do you need you need the screen?
Yes, I do. I have some pictures I can share.
Okay, let me give you, make sure that you have the, yep, you do. Beautiful.
Okay, so let me see. I make that. Can everyone see it?
Yes, working beautiful.
Okay, so this is the Lorca Lane project. And you can see what we did there is we took parking lanes and we restricted parking, and we used the bollards and rubber wheel stops to form a temporary pedestrian walk path. The reason we feel comfortable doing this is because we already have an existing bike lane that the traffic is not immediately next to children walking in there. Because to be honest, the bollards and the wheel stops will not be crash worthy if you think of that way. So the fact the road is wide and has enough shoulder space make it more comfortable of doing this. So what you're looking at, this is a stretch where it's just, parking lane. And let me go to the next one. We also did is we used temporary marking tapes to put in crosswalk. Because there was no path and therefore there was no really a marked crosswalk. And we use that so that we can give people a indication and also cars an indication of people are crossing from there. The temporary tape are reflective, so they should act as if it's marking. Thank goodness we're doing this, this week, and the weather, the temperature was good, so the tape actually stick. And I have one more. This is also, where we use marking tapes to identify the crosswalk, give people indication that you actually now have pedestrian crossing. So this is the Lorca Lane. I want to thank the community, the neighborhood who are basically putting up with this for us to take the parking away from them. When we put out the signs to say, hey, no parking here, I was sort of worried about what if people didn't move their car? Will we need to go out there and tow their car? But thankfully, we did notify the neighborhood about a week in advance, and they are very supportive. And I know, Kristen, you've helped, the school has helped pushing out the same message. So folks really left that lane alone and allow us to do this. The current schedule for this temporary treatment is going to stay in there till the school ends in summer. I will say that's the current schedule. Based on how school, plans to use summertime, how we see COVID lifting up, how the transportation, the bus service go back to normal, I will say we can discuss about the length of the project later. So this is Lorca. Any question about Lorca before I move to Carlin Springs? And I cannot see the screen, so if somebody raise hand, I have to just jump.
Go ahead to the other, and let's take them all at the end, I think. Let's put all.
Okay. So I'm now moving to Carlin Springs, and I took this map. I want to show you. This is Columbia Pike at the bottom, and the top is 50. And the stretch we're treating is from this bottom arrow to the top arrow. The bottom arrow is where South Carlin Springs widens up from 1 lane to 2. The little stretch, right south of that to Columbia Pike is already a 1 lane stretch and with on-street parking. We're not touching that. And we go from here, we're taking out a lane all the way to 5th Road South. 5th Road South is the street where you can go into the Carlin Springs Elementary, and you also have a walking path into Kenmore. So with this stretch, reducing 1 lane, we hope we can provide a buffered, safer walking path for kids, going to all 2 elementary. This is Campbell and, Carlin Springs, and then Kenmore. We have had people asking, why don't you do it all the way to 50? As you can see the layout on the map, the roads start narrow, and with all this division, this residential area, they feed into Carlin Springs, the volumes start to jump. At this point is where the volume really jumped to a level that 1 lane wouldn't be able to handle. Additional conflict or sort of difficulty is for this stretch, it has a median, a hard median, and has, 2 lanes. So you don't even have flexibility, what we have at the southern portion. The southern portion has a middle turn lane or a wider marked median area. That would allow the cars that wish to turn left into the neighborhood to stay in the middle lane and wait a little bit for the gap. If you don't provide that gap for people and they try to beat it, they try to beat the gap, you are actually creating safety challenge that could be very risky. So we really sort of calculated the risk. We collected data to see, COVID did push the volume down significantly on this stretch that make us feel comfortable of trying to take that 1 lane. The current schedule is to say for 6 months. It's going to stay in there until into September. And again, based on the traffic condition, based on how safe it is actually operates, we can adjust, move it up or back. You notice this middle arrow, I put it here. This is the Long Branch Park driveway. From this arrow to here, you have the old, Virginia Hospital Center here that does not have a lot of curb cuts, meaning you don't have, driveway open on that, or you don't have, streets. That allow us to use a different type of treatment versus the bottom. The southern portion, we're going to use similar treatment as what you saw, I just showed on Lorca, a combination of bollards and wheel stops, because we have very frequent curb cuts, not just the side streets, but also households that directly open up into Carlin Springs. The only way to make that, not creating any side distance challenge and all that is to use that method. And the top part, we're going to use these little things. They're not little. They are, I believe, 18 by 72 by 36. Well, this is just, a batch of delivery we got. We now, our trades yard now is covered with these things. We load them in cars. We're ready to deploy them. They can be linked with these, metal rods that they can form a wall basically between the lane and the driving lane. And they can be filled with water, which would provide certain weight for them to be more stable. So for the part that is, I guess never mind. For For the part that is here, the northern part, we're going to use this technique. And the south part, we're going to use bollards and wheel stops. So this is a little bit more detail, maybe just to give you a sense of the operation. The installation will happen this Saturday. This is a unique project where you cannot do it too early. You cannot do it too late. You have to do it on time and preferably on a weekend. So we don't have too many weekends to spend. This weekend, weather is good. We're going to start putting them down, and we hope we can finish in one shot. We do have one complication, though. There is a gas utility work at the southern portion that's rolling from exactly where we want to do the wheel stop and bollards. If the utility work didn't pull out quick enough, we may leave some of the segment for next week, because we just have to let the trenching and everything finish. So that's the only slight complication from there. Now I'm going to move to the Minatory and Nelly Costas project. I don't know how to close this. Never mind, just this way. This is Minatory Road, and Nelly Costas start from here. And we all know that intersection is a very wide intersection with the right turn almost unimpeded, come with very high speed. And it's coming down a hill and turning on a horizontal curve. You just, you add all the combination of difficulty together and make pedestrian crossing very challenging. There is a project, basically been going on, like Kristen said, for years, trying to find a way to improve this one. Before the project the design get finalized and the plan get finalized, we do have a window of a few months or even maybe more than half a year that we can try something here to see if that's going to help, which is a roundabout. So the roundabout is not going to be built. There's not too much civil work in there. The roundabout will be formed using similar tactical method, like, bollards, marking, but we will try to form a roundabout which would squeeze the turning movement a little bit, forcing people to slow down and sort of pay attention and go through this area. And we hope it's successful. We're not sure. We talk to Kristen very often about this one. We need school support to allow us to do pilot projects like this. And yes, we have community who's still, not convinced of that. But that's the spirit of, I will say, part of the Vision Zero. We call for people to open up their mind, open up to piloting these creative method, and hopefully we can identify something good for everyone. So that should wrap up all of my slides.
So Wei, this is amazing stuff. A couple thoughts I have, and then I'll take it over to the groups. First thing I'll say is thank you, and yes, we should all absolutely be completely supportive however we can be for this. One thing I would say is if we could get a mobile message board maybe at the base around 8th Street, that just the message I came up right now, but something different, like making room for our students, like telling the community why you're losing a lane, but for a very, very good reason.
Thank you for that comment. We're doing something even more than that. We are putting out, I think, 4 signs, what we call the project information signs.
Yes.
That would identify this, the name of it, why we're doing this, and we're putting the Vision Zero logo on that. Beautiful. This would be the first project that bears the Vision Zero logo.
The second thing I would say, for asking for school support, if there was a single pager that this should get pushed out as a school talk, because the county is doing this to support the schools. And if there was a single pager with renderings or whatever of projects coming soon, And maybe if you could work with Kristen, could get with school and community relations, this should go out. We should be celebrating that we're trying to make this. This is exactly what ACTC is about. Different ways of getting kids to school safely.
Yeah,
and it might not.
There is actually I will say, a message. Each project, the detail and a picture. I think the county board already received that. And we pushed out some of the information to the community already. We also shared with school, and I know Kristen and the school communications team is helping us voicing that out. I do want to let everyone know that we did receive comments from the community who lives there. They worry about this, put a burden on traffic, on their ability to turn left. We did receive those, and we are trying to communicate with them. So it's, I know we got a lot of support. We're very excited having the support, but we do have different voice that we are hearing.
Yes. Oh, I'm sure. It's there's always dissent and positive in all things. So yeah. I see Kristen's hand up, and then if we've got others who have questions, if you just have thoughts, go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll go Kristen, and then we'll go Elizabeth, and then Lauren.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, so I've been talking with the project team about this, and we want to have a meeting, have Dorothy Ham and the PTA have an information session about this project, because it will impact the students who are walking to school. So, and when we first started talking about this, there are two alternatives that were being discussed for this project. One was the roundabout, and one was for a signal. And I, first started out thinking, well, wouldn't a signal be better there because, it would stop traffic? And so I was like, oh, I don't know about a roundabout. But then Dan Neighbors presented, he showed me some statistics from National Cooperative Highway Safety Synthesis, it was a synthesis project, I think, where they had done some national research on roundabouts, and the safety statistics for the roundabouts were pretty compelling. And I thought, well, I never knew that. So I, when we talked about it, I said, I'd really like to have this slide and this information be put into any of our public information sessions that we have, because it's certainly important to understand what the benefits are to something like this, and going in with more information about that. So I wanted to just say thank him for bringing that information to my attention, because I think that's certainly an important piece of the conversation. So I'm looking forward to working with the school on having an information session. We talked about not doing it in March when everything is so chaotic, but hopefully in April we can get something on the agenda and talk about this with them. Thank you, Hui.
Thank you, Kristen. This is a joint effort, really, ACTC discussed the ideas a couple meetings back, and Kristen has been constantly working with us on these things. So we're just so glad it happened. We even got sort of funding for that, because the project, you may not notice, all those pieces, those plastic pieces, they are very costly. When you add them up, it's a large project. And we were able to get funding support from the DES leadership. I would just say it's wonderful it can come together.
It's awesome. Thank you. I was thinking, I'm like, this is not cheap, and none of this was budgeted. So it's wonderful. So Elizabeth, and then Lauren.
Yes, I just want to add my voice to how grateful we are. This is so exciting. I remember the parent advocates who have been coming and talking particularly about the first intersection, and I'm so excited to see this. I'm sorry, not first intersection, the second. You're right, the Carlin Springs one. But my question is on the first one. I think you were saying basically the bike lane is a buffer between the cars and the pedestrians. What's the story with the trash cans? I know that might have just been trash day, but is that then in the sort of sidewalk, and on the trash day, the children will be in the bike lane? Just wondering. I know it's something you can control. Trash is trash. I just had that question.
Right. So on the trash days, usually what we do is we sort of ask the residents what they have to put the trash can off into there so that the trash truck can pick them up. But we ask them to line it in a way, because that parking lane is 7 foot wide. They should be able to still leave plenty of room for kids to walk by. I don't think we have a quick way to turn their trash habit, because you know, actually the trash service and our protected bike lanes sometimes have conflict. For example, on North Beach, we had some of those conflicts. We have to actually really write message to teach people how to do their trash collection day while they have a protected bike lane. So this is similar, I will say, to like adding a protected bike lane, but we have to allow that to coexist a little bit. So yes, what you notice is it could be on days there could be some obstacles in the walking path, but it should be able to, people should be able to walk by, because usually that's near a driveway. Another thing is we do consider these are young children that we're encouraging them to walk. We want to be able to provide a continuous path that's relatively safe in order to do that, which is why you notice on Carlton Spring, we call that a pedestrian buffer. We don't call that a pedestrian lane, because we have 4 bus stops, and each bus stop would require 120 feet length for them to pull into the curb, pull up to the curb and come out. And then you have very frequent side street breaks. And then you have driveway breaks. When you account for all those breaks, the path is not a very continuous one. When it's not a continuous one, we worry about young kids thinking they're safe and forgot to negotiate with the cars that may be, you know, coming at them. So we still encourage our kids to stay on the sidewalk. Luckily, the southern portion, the sidewalk is not the narrowest. The southern portion actually has, a lot of places has a utility grass strip. So we encourage them to stay on there. And if they find themselves, you know, riding a bike or something in that buffer lane, there must be very, I will say, extra attention to that. That, you know, the curb cuts, there are cars coming, even going into driveway or into side streets. There's nothing we can do to prevent that.
Thank you. Lauren?
I was just going to say, Wei and Josh, with a great idea regarding communicating this great news, and so that people understand it, but also that they recognize all the work that went into it. So I would be happy to put something together, both for the Friday 5 for APS and then Peach Jar, but I'll work with what you have and try to make it into just something that's
okay. I will send Lauren, I will send what we shared with our county board and also our community. I'll send that to you.
Okay, perfect.
You may already have it, but let me send it to you again, and you can start from there. And the pictures and stuff, if you need them, I can send them to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you, Lauren and Jillian, and then we'll move on to our projects near schools.
Yep, super quick. This is awesome. Like everything you said is awesome. I'm so excited. And you probably know this, but it's that stretch by the hospital on Carlin Springs where the sidewalk is super narrow and is lined with poison ivy. So the fact that that's getting the really sturdy buffer and kids and other people will use the street on that area is super important, and that works out. That's awesome. Just wanted to note on the budget, this is pandemic related, at least for now. And so I hope that you guys, you don't have to respond. I know you guys look at all sorts of things, but I hope you guys will look at various pandemic related sources of funding, and it's both related to the pandemic and related to schools. And I know there are various pots of money specific to both of those things. And there will hopefully be more pots of money if our friends across the river get their act together and pass the next COVID relief bill. So hopefully some funding can come from those pots to pay for some of this and then free up more money for more Vision Zero and maybe even more projects like this during the pandemic and then beyond.
Josh, before we move on, just wanted to say, did you see that Dennis had his hand up briefly? I don't know if we have time for that comment.
It went up and then back down. Dennis, did you need to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the evaluation is going to be an important element of these pilots. Looking at Lorca, looking at the Roundabout, looking at Carlin Springs. We also anticipate that all three, but particularly Carlin Springs and the Lorca installations, will have a traffic calming benefit. Our goal is to reduce traffic speeds, which actually makes these corridors safer. So I just wanted to add that to Way's presentation.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I was thinking that as well along the way, that there was definitely all these projects seem to be a win for not just schools, but the community. So thank you for that. Next up is some FYI on county projects, and then we'll roll straight into our conversation of better know an intersection.
Okay, Josh, I think I'm going to share my agenda from our JCTC meeting, which has the list of them on, has the list of them on. Okay, I do. No. Or I might just be reading them. Where is my... Okay, so clearly something is wrong with my teams. Let me, I'll just speak to them, and Wei, if you want to chime in at all on anything. These are just county projects that are occurring near schools, so we just want to make people aware of them. We know we've got, there's some construction starting at an intersection at Glebe and 18th, which is across the street from Glebe Elementary. And I think, that's a signal project, is that right, Wei?
I think it's more than a signal, but the project has the signal portion left to do.
Okay. Okay, so just a little update on that. That construction on that starts on March 15th. So just as we're getting back to school. So if you have anyone in Glebe in your circles, they're already in touch with the principal and whatnot. And she's alerted the school community, so that's good. Jamestown, near Jamestown, is the Glebe and Williamsburg signal rebuild project, and that's also starting now. That's got about a 2-month duration, I guess, barring any weather complications. We just discussed the Taylor and Dorothy Ham pilot roundabout. So that'll be an exciting project. I guess with construction would not start earlier than April, and Wei and I talked about that. We talked about that on Friday, so sometime in spring. And then lastly, I guess we've got a signal rebuild project starting now near George Mason and Henderson. And so the project duration, that one's about 2 months, again, barring any weather complications. So those are just some things that are going on around school. So as we're getting back to school, walking, driving, we just want to be mindful of these projects going on. And that was all I had on those.
Cool. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. So let me share the agenda one more time, just to show you that. So we're going to talk about our Better Know an Intersection project of Wilson and George Mason. And for those new to the group, the idea behind Better Know an Intersection is that maybe we get some ideas both from the community and the experts on traffic movement to see if we can make intersections more pedestrian friendly to once again improve biking and walking ability in Arlington. And then I have at the end, we added safe routes to school update, and then any feedback on the return that people wanted to add. So, who are we going to? Who's gonna lead this? Kristen, is that going to be you?
I can lead it if you can drive to the intersection. No pun intended.
Yep. Give me just a minute.
Navigate rather.
Wade, did you have something? Did you have something prepared on this that you wanted to share, or should I bring up the intersection?
Go ahead, bring it up. I did take a look, and thanks for giving me that sort of advance notice of this intersection. I did take a look. I think there are some thought on there. I also pulled up the volume, the volume counts. So if you guys are interested, I can share some numbers.
Great. No, this one, you know, right
Go
now,
ahead and do that.
Arlington Traditional School is on the other side of this one. And the reason I brought it up, even though ATS is an option school and the new one coming in is an option school, it is going to undergo a change to a new school. So the key immersion program will move to this site. And I think one of the hopes of the new of the immersion program for the new site is that they'll have students who might come from the area south of Wilson Boulevard and George Mason Drive to come to the school, students who are Spanish speakers in particular. So I think the intersection could the walk could be, we could see more students trying to avail themselves of a walk to school. So, and again, with the immersion program, there actually is a boundary for immersion. It's larger than your neighborhood program, but still, students will come from a certain area near the school. So, I thought it's a big intersection, and it would be worth sort of investigating today. So, Josh is going to bring it up for us, and if anyone, if you're familiar with it, it's a big one. And I think, is it the Wendy's that's on the corner there, or right in front, on the front of the school? I think so.
McDonald's.
Sorry. So anyhow, yeah. So I thought this would be a good one just up for discussion, because it is, because it's a big one, and we do have a pretty robust community around that area.
So Wei, why don't you share the numbers you had and maybe any thoughts you had about it, and then we'll open it up to discussion.
Yes. The numbers I have. So you notice that intersection, there are certain turning movement that has protected left. I think there's that's the northbound. Let me make sure. It's the it's the northbound turning that has the protected left. It has a significant left turning movement, 184 per hour. And the overall sort of volume wise, I'm looking at my chart while I'm talking. So the overall volume, hourly volume, when it's, I think it's, I have two charts that I need to put together. Just bear with me.
Wait, while you're doing that, I'm just going to mention a couple things.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, this intersection was an early action location for something called arterial transportation management. It used to have a very dangerous slip lane, and believe it or not, the intersection was wider. So you see the curb ramps, the zebra crosswalks, the island refuge to the north of the intersection crossing George Mason. All of those things were added. But again, it's an investment that was made probably in I want to say 2010, between 2010 and 2012. So it's probably almost a decade or more old. And our thinking has evolved since then. It does have a lot of turning movements between George Mason and Wilson Boulevard. But I do want to make that reference because it had one set of interventions. Again, it's now probably more than a decade ago.
Thank you, Dennis. Yes, I just want to point out that the peak hour volume is about the major route, which is Wilson, is about 1,800, and for George Mason, which is the minor, considered as the minor, is about 1,500 per hour. That's the peak hour volume. So yes, this is a very busy intersection. And when I sort of take a look at that one, the southern leg, the northbound, actually has a very narrow sidewalk with a lot of poles in the middle of the sidewalk. That could be your major challenge of having a large group of people walking on the sidewalk. That's actually before you reach the intersection. So Josh, if you can, like, drive around that, you will see the not this one, the southern leg, where you don't really have that curb bump, because any place where we have a curb bump, I can see that's already improvement. And I suspect the corner that doesn't have that could because of like a right-of-way challenge or something like that. And you have a lot of utility posts in the middle of the sidewalk.
She means exactly behind you, Josh.
Yeah, the worst quadrant is the southeast quadrant, that one.
Yes.
That's a problem.
So, Wei, did you have more to say? And then if not, I will then take it through questions. Or was that what you had to start with?
Yeah, I don't have more to say, but I am taking notes of what you all have to offer.
Okay, so I will go Jillian, Kristen, and then I think I saw Adam.
Thank you. So full disclosure, we bike through here on the Bluemont Trail all the time, and I don't think that was mentioned, but the Bluemont Trail, you can see and what's up on the screen, there's a person using the sidewalk to go on the trail, and it comes from Caddy Corner. If you were to turn the little person around, you would see where it comes from. So you have to cross both legs of the intersection, right there where you see that little storage shed, that's the trail. You have to cross both legs of this intersection to continue on the Bluemont Trail. My family does this all the time, and we go to Key Immersion. So we will be going to this site, and I've been actually really focused on this site and focused on the transportation connections and talking to people who currently go to ATS. In fact, I just talked to somebody yesterday who doesn't even go to ATS, goes to Claremont, but ATS is their hub stop, or would be their hub stop. And because of this intersection, they're not using the school bus because they think that crossing Wilson is too dangerous. So this is a big issue. The primary issue that the Key community has immediately is that a lot of the students who currently go to Key and who will be going to Key for the next couple of years are actually going to be coming from the east, and a lot of them live in the RB corridor, will be using transit. So we'll end up in Ballston, and it's actually not a very long walk from Ballston if you use the trails, but crossing George Mason is a big impediment. And so they can either come down here and use the crosswalk that we're all looking at now, or it would significantly cut the walk from Ballston is if the crossing a little bit north from here on George Mason were safer at 9th Street or at Fairfax Drive. Fairfax Drive would be more convenient. It would make it a shorter walk from the Boston Metro and from where all the buses are in Boston. Though I confess, having been there and spent some time there, the way the road curves over 66, that Fairfax Drive is just a really tough location. But then focusing on this intersection, as everyone noted, the southeast corner is just horrible. I can't express how, with that pole in the middle, how bad it is. And especially because, as you can see from the picture, lots of people are using this, are in this area with bikes. And so actually, even when you're just walking in this area, there are so many people biking along the Bluemont Trail and using all of these connections to get to the Bluemont Trail that they end up blocking the sidewalks even more. And so because there isn't and none of the four corners, except for maybe the southwest corner, really have enough room for people on bikes waiting to use crosswalks and people walking in different directions to pass each other. So while it's certainly an improvement from what it used to be, it's still not good enough. It's not that there's an easy solution now, but here is one where I think we should really consider a Barnes dance, or a way, a timing, part of the time signal where people can continue on the Bluemont Trail and cross diagonally in this area. I wish I had more solutions to suggest, but I think that the immediate thing in the Key community, we'll be talking about the crossing a little bit north, and then possibly a Barnes dance, and anything we can do to widen those landing areas at the four corners.
Thank you, Jillian. Kristen, and then Adam.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, and I was just wondering, sort of thinking of, Dennis, you said our thinking has evolved over, the past 10 years, and, we do things a little differently. And I'm looking at this intersection with just so much space. And my first, sort of inclination or question was, at the very least, can we make more room on the corners with, curb bump outs? And I know, we've got, cars turning right, etc. But is this a place where we can use some of that space just to give more space over to pedestrians out of this intersection, and perhaps in particular in that southeast corner, that would at least cut down on some of the travel time that pedestrians would need. If a diagonal crossing could be made, that'd be great. I think about all the movements there, and that seems like a tough nut to crack. But I just see a whole lot of space, and I'm wondering what can we do with all that space. So I'll just leave that as sort of an open question.
Kristen, what I would say on that is, since this intersection was rebuilt probably more than a decade ago, we have the as-built plans, and that's a first place where we would start to look at the geometrics, to look at lane widths, to see what kind of margin is in this intersection. I would also mention that there is bus service to this location from the RB corridor. There is the 75 bus, which actually has bus stops on the west side of George Mason on both sides of Wilson Boulevard.
All right. Thank you. Kristen, did you have more, or can I go on to Adam?
Nope, done.
Cool. Thank you. Adam?
Okay. I just had a question, and that is, do we have any idea numbers expected on how many students will be coming from the east and south of the new Key school once that's in operation?
I actually can tell you this because the answer is very few. I think it is at max 15. No, at max 10 next year. Well, plus kindergartners who get in through the lottery. So at most maybe 20 next year. But the reason APS staff said that the reason they wanted to move Key here and away from our established community was because of the Spanish-speaking families that live to the south of here. They have not yet adjusted Key's boundaries because there's 2 immersion schools in the county, so that there is a boundary even though it's an option. They have not yet adjusted Key's boundaries to actually allow Spanish-speaking families that live south of here to go, but they are going to next year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Adam, did you have another, or was that it?
That's it.
Okay. John, and then I have one, so my hand will go up virtually.
I'm going to pass, Josh.
Okay. I had an idea, and I went and found a picture of it because my attempt to describe it is just a road when I'm on vacation of a place that I know. So I'm going to change my share a minute to just describe. Let me do this. Where is it? So this intersection here is in Merritt Island, Florida, and this is a very common Florida thing, is you put an extremely heavy duty on only 2 corners and you string it across the traffic lane, and this covers so that you have big poles on caddy corner and leaving the other 2 completely empty. I bring up that question to ask if that could then be done on the 2 corners. Of course, my Teams is going to mess up the second that I want to do it right. Yes, there it goes. Could it be done could we do it on the 2 corners where we have the most room and get rid of the poles on the 2 corners that have the least room? Is that even possible?
So Josh, I can sort of give you some information in general, not specific about the intersection. In general, the span wire signals are substandard than the master arm ones. The reason being, they actually have sort of less of resistance to weather, to wind, to damage, and they go into flash more often than the master arm ones because they have a lot of exposed wires. It could become a safety and public safety thing. Every time there's weather, even just rain, when we get report of signals going to flash, it's usually the places where we have the span wire, because the exposed lines, they seep up water and they trip that fuse, and you get into a non-operational one. So in general, we are actually removing span wires and putting them and replacing them with master arms, which is part of our proactive program we're doing. The one that you show, indeed, is a pretty significant span wire. So in order to carry that much of line and load, you may need a bigger pole. You may need to pull out the existing poles and redo them at a bigger size and strength, deeper foundation. So that itself, that becomes a different size of project. So it's not like you can just take some down and put the wire up. You have to redesign the whole thing. That itself can become an issue. And if you can actually do me a favor, if you can go out of this street view and go into that aerial view with the satellite image on. And if you zoom in to really to the lowest level highest level into the intersection, I just want to point out to folks, you look at the southeast quadrant, the turning curvature of that corner is actually the smallest if you compare to the others that has the bump out. I don't have the history of the project, but that gives me an indication that they really don't have room to bump it out anymore. What would be nice if they can cut back, if on the back where the green is, if county can gain some easement or access and widen that corner, that'd be great. Right now, if you bump it out, you are gonna lose some of the function of your lane. So I don't see a room here for bumping out. Unfortunately, that's the most restrictive corner. And one more thing is the pole, the signal pole, yes, it is there. I did actually take a look to see if it still left enough ADA accessibility. It actually did. What matters if you go from where the crosswalk and you go all the way south to the edge of your map, that sidewalk is so narrow. The utility pole is right in the middle. I don't think we have an ADA accessible sidewalk to even lead to this corner. So that's one more thing. So yes, I agree. There's some issue, especially in this quadrant. I don't have some immediate wisdom of what to do with it, but I'm taking all of your feedback and stuff in notes, and I'm going to take that back to the team.
So, and I will add what you said about the wiring is that was actually an old picture that they have since gone back on that intersection, and it is an unbelievably massive metal structure, but they did it on the diagonal because of exactly what you described, but they also had to make it hurricane sustainable. So
yes.
It is a huge project, and
yeah, you probably need to
brutalism
dig.
or something, but it's. I'm sorry.
No, you need to dig a lot deeper into the ground for the structure safety. And sometimes for us, one challenge we have is we have a lot of utility on the ground, and some of our older signals are on the metro line. Not this one, but we have many that are on the metro line. We cannot go deep. We cannot even go into the ground without getting the approval from WMATA, which itself is a long process.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that explanation. We'll go Adam, then we'll wrap up with Jillian, and we'll do our last two closing items.
Okay, sorry about that. I know this is probably a crazy idea, but was there ever any thought given to the possibility of building some kind of a pedestrian or bike bridge that would span from the southwest corner to the northeast corner?
I am not aware of such plan, and I will say a project of that level definitely need to have a lot of, I will say, feasibility evaluation.
Right.
Jillian, we'll give the last thought to you. And
so
then
I did have, sorry, I did have one thing that I do think is a quick fix that would help. Bike boxes. It doesn't help everybody, but so if you're looking at the screen, you see that white car that's heading north? If in front of that car there were a green box, so that if a person were biking northbound on the Bluemont Trail, and so they would come up, they would use the crosswalk behind that red car's butt, they had a place, and it basically directed them to wait in a green box right there before heading on the trail. And then I think you could do a similar thing catty corner. So for someone biking south on the trail, if they crossed George Mason first, if they waited basically on the street and then crossed, went on the trail that way. I mean, it's not perfect, doesn't help everyone, but there are enough people for whom they would use that would get the bikes off the sidewalk, that would leave more sidewalk space for people walking. It would be a marginal, it would be an improvement. It wouldn't fix all the problems, but it would be an improvement, and it's cheap. It's just green paint.
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm taking that down, and I definitely will have our marketing team taking a look.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Adam, can you put your suggestion in the chat? I want to try to get the last to the last couple items here.
Yep,
if
absolutely.
you wouldn't mind. Thank you, and then I'll read it out when we get to observations. All right, so let me end this share and reshare this one. And thank you guys. This is probably one of my favorite parts, is the better know an intersection, and we all come together on it. So safe route to schools update, and then feedback on return. So Kristen, do you need a share on this? Or are you just gonna, or Lauren, who's doing this one?
Well, I can just cover the two quick headlines for Safe Routes. One is that we got a mini grant for traffic gardens, temporary traffic garden installations at two schools, at the school currently known as ATS and at Hoffman Boston. And the paperwork just came in this week, so we hope to get that rolling, or yes, I guess that's the right pun, in later this month before spring break if possible, but more likely now in April. And then on the long view, the non-infrastructure grant for the annual funds that we use to pay me and do the work I do and some other things, that is due. There are two parts. The first part is due this week, but then we just found out the deadline's been delayed, which makes me a little nervous because there's been some questions about the funding and it may be smaller than they originally anticipated. But in any case, it is still happening. And so we're on track to deliver our application. So that's all the news on that front. Oh, and we mentioned the navigation maps before. The link, I put it in the chat because there was when maps were added, apparently the webmaster changed the overall link and now the old link doesn't work. So I've sent her a quick note to fix that. And if you want to look at the navigation maps we mentioned earlier, the correct link is in the chat.
And Lauren, the question in the chat is, do you need a support from ACTC? Would that be of benefit to you for your application, or is that not something?
Yes, actually, and the second part to the first part, we just kind of say what our plan would be and what our how it affects all the different pillars, if you will, of Safe Routes. And then the second part, we would be looking for a pledge of support and probably a signature from you, Josh, and our Dennis as well. And so we've done that before, but we'll be in touch hopefully in the next week or so once we get the first part in.
So if there was someone, John, who might want to make a motion of support, that would be wonderful.
Oh, yes, that would be most welcome.
And we could take a quick vote on that.
There's an idea.
I move that we enthusiastically support Arlington Safe Routes to Schools grant.
Do you have second. Okay, so it was proposed by Jillian. Who was the second?
That was second.
Elizabeth. Okay. So the votes have to be of the voting members of the community of the committee. What I will ask, so that it becomes part of the public record, if you are in favor of this, please say, please type in the chat an aye. If you are opposed, put a no. If you are unable to access the chat, if you will turn on your camera or somehow make an indication so that we know that you weren't able to participate in the chat.
Hey, Josh, I think I'm not a voting member. Is that correct?
I will lean to Kristen on this. I believe it has to be Kristen, what's the answer on that?
I'm just a liaison.
I think that's correct, Libby.
Oh, that's fine.
You are a liaison.
Okay, happy to be the liaison.
So I believe we have a majority on that. I see no no's. I believe we have enough to call that aye. So I believe you have your enthusiastic support.
Thank you so much. I will use that word. Thank you, Josh. Good idea.
Thank you. So the last did you have more, Lauren, or was that?
Yeah, those were just the two main, and the big picture of Safe Routes.
Thank you.
Josh.
So feedback on return. If you wanted to either put some in the chat, if you anything else you had heard from the past couple days. I also want to read out that Adam had another suggestion, and Wei, I don't know if you could see that in the chat, of use signage to direct trail users to cross in the more advantageous manner as well.
Yes, Adam, I saw that and I copy pasted it into my note.
The only problem with that is that when both directions do that, there's actually too many people. Like two bikes can't pass each other going in opposite directions, even on the wide corner. And so it kind of just all works out on the wash if everybody just goes where they have green. But if everybody waits to go to the McDonald's corner, then the McDonald's corner gets full if even just 2 people are going in opposite directions. Sorry.
So I have a hand up from Kristen.
Yeah, this was actually just related to the Safe Routes funding, and I put it in the chat. You know, every year we hold our breath on this funding source, and as Lauren mentioned, this year there's definitely a smaller pot. We don't know how much smaller. I think if we are awarded this grant this year, Lauren, correct me if I'm wrong, we're on year 8. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so you know, they're asking for programs to be sustainable. And I think, you know, there will come a time when the grant funding may not come our way. And so what we will need then is advocacy for this to be included as an FTE for APS.
Let us see how this goes. It's quite the budget year for everyone too. What a way to end the meeting. So maybe
well, that
somebody
wasn't my observation. Everyone, somebody else give good observations for today and yesterday.
John, I see a hand. Go give something positive.
Yeah, just one quick question or a positive thing is I noticed in the past week or so, we were talking about Kirkwood Road and the crossing of it near just south of North 17th Street. And I noticed it looks like we have counting or speed material on the pavement now, getting those counts. So I just wondered if maybe Dennis or Wei could comment on that.
Yes, what we decided to do is we all know because of COVID, traffic are different. So counting volume may not be a good time right now, but counting speed, not counting, basically taking speed observation is actually not affected. And to a certain degree, that may be able to capture some of the speeding activity. So we are setting those out to capture the speed data, which would feed into our post-speed study. So once we come out of that, we're going to make a recommendation of what to do with the posted speed.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So, Jillian, you'll wrap up this section for us, and then we'll close out with dates for the next meeting.
Yeah. So I think this is Libby's first meeting, and I just wanted to point out that this group, I think, is a model for county APS coordination and collaboration, and it's amazing. I've worked on so many things where the public sort of grits their teeth and says, if only APS and the county could work together. And I think this group has done an excellent job at doing that. I really applaud staff on both sides for doing that, and really thank the leadership on both sides for making it happen. And Libby, I think this is your first meeting here, so I hope you got to see that and appreciate that, and I hope we can take these lessons into other areas too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually think kudos to Josh and how he's running it. It's one of the best, most, as a commission, you're just getting work done. You got point, you go through it and you get it done. And there's nobody's grandstanding, nobody's kind of getting into the weeds too much. And it's just, everybody's kind of doing what they ought to be doing, working together and moving on. And it's quite delightful to see. Thank you guys much.
Well, thank you. And Jillian, thank you for that, because I do think that it's amazing that action comes out of this committee. And I believe if we're going to give our evenings to this, that we should all, that there should be things. And so yes, once again, thank the transit operations staff and the school staff and everyone who's trying to make this work. There is no playbook for this, or if there is, you're kind of revising something else. So our next meeting will be on May 5th. The closeout meeting for the year will be on June 16th. And with that, and without objection, we will close the meeting.
All right. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you all. And I'm going to stop the recording here.
Thank
Good
you.
evening all.
Nice
night,
to
all.
see everybody. Everybody stay well. By May, we're